Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Um, Welcome to our special panel discussion. Today we have amazing guest. Before we go into the panel discussion, I would like to share a couple of things with you guys, and then we do have a special host to host this amazing panel discussion. My name is Sivam Velaidam, and I am the founder and the president Voice of Men 360. Today's topic, family court system, men's challenges, and also criminal court system too. This panel discussion is to recognize the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Men and Boys, which we observe on January 31st every year. This is our fourth year's anniversary. And this year theme is providing help, healing, hope. Thank you, Dr. Jerome Talaksing, for appointing Voice of Men 360 as the Canadian coordinator for the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Men and Boys. Indeed, it is a great honor to be the Canadian voice. Yes, Voice of Men 360, we would like to take this opportunity very seriously, give high priority to this movement, and we will do whatever we can do through our platform. Let me share a few details about our organization and the disclaimer for this today's show. And I will hand it to Will Baptiste, who is our host for today's show. Voice of Men 360 is a non-profit organization founded in 2020 and is based in London, Ontario, Canada. Voice of Men 360 was born out of seeing a tremendous need and stepping up to provide services to help, support, and overcome men and boys' life challenges. We are part of International Men's Day. International Men's Day has been serving for over 21 years, and so far 90 countries around the world joined together, doing various activities regularly. IMD follows 6 pillars, which is the overall well-being of boys and men. We follow in the same footsteps. Before I introduce to our host, I would like to give you the disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered with good faith toward peaceful harmony. The views and opinion expressed in today's episode, today's discussion, are those of our speakers, do not represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration, create awareness to the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have a question or concern about today's discussion or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. Today, like I said, we do have a special host to host this show. His name is Will Baptiste, president and founder of Rising Men Alliance. Will, thanks a lot. Really appreciate for your contribution, man. Take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to Sivam for giving me the opportunity to host this event, which is particularly close to my heart, and not just as a man, but also as a father. And for those who are not familiar with me, my name is Will Baptiste. I'm a Haitian Canadian, born in Haiti, raised in Florida, and have been residing in Montreal, Quebec for the past 16 years. I'm a coach for men and also an author of The Will to Rise, How to Persevere in the Face of Adversity. I'm a speaker. I'm also the founder and president of Rising Men Alliance. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to each and every one of you for joining us on the panel tonight. It is both a pleasure and an honor to spend the next 90 plus minutes with you, participating in such an important and much needed discussion. And I'd like to thank our viewers who are watching live, as well as those who will be watching on replay. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. And we'll start with women first and then the man. So any of you ladies, we're going to start with Dr. Kelli. Dr. Kelli, please briefly introduce yourself and let the viewers know who you are and
Hello.
what you do.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yes, it's an honor to be here. My name is Dr. Kelli Palfy, and I'm a registered psychologist. I specialize in working with male survivors of sexual abuse and first responders. And I got into this area of work because I used to be a police lady, and I was witnessing that boys and men are victims too, and we were not, like, we would get seized evidence that would prove they were victims, but we were not having the reports from them. So I made it the subject of my doctoral research to find out why they weren't talking about this. So that's what kind of qualifies me, plus a lot of client reports.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing, Dr. Kelli. And we're pleased to have you with us. I'd like to that's the next person. I believe Rael is having some difficulties. We're going to go to Mr. Michael Burry. Please introduce yourself and let us know who you are and what you do. You are on mute.
There we go. Thank you again. So my name is Michael Burry. I'm a lawyer at Neuberger and Partners in Toronto. We're a criminal law firm, and we specialize primarily in intimate partner violence cases. And that includes anything ranging from domestic assault to sexual assault. And candidly speaking, most of our clients still at this time are men who are typically at the receiving end of, very recently, a lot of false allegations. So we're dealing with a lot of false allegations in the system that are being brought, and fighting those cases on a daily basis. As Kelli knows.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Wow, this is definitely going to be
it's gonna be good.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We haven't even get started yet with the questions. So, I mean, I have so many questions that's already going on in my head, but we're going to go with Rael. If you are able to speak, thank you for coming back. Yeah, please introduce yourself real quick and let us know who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Rael. I'm over here in the States, so I'm the odd man out tonight, but I work with Interference with Child Custody Coalition, or IC3, and our goal is to help parents advocate for themselves and learn their rights to enforce the criminal laws of custodial interference that have been here in the States for 50 years. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Lee.
Good day, everyone. Thank you to Voices Men 360 for inviting me to be a part of this. My name is Theodore. I'm the Vice President of the Quinte Cultural Innovation Committee. That is the title and the organization that got the invitation. But the reason why I accepted this is I feel that this panel is actually speaking to myself. And I'm hoping to represent the audience of men that are out there that don't know where their questions are supposed to go, or what resources are available, or how this is supposed to go for them. So I'm not as esteemed as these wonderful individuals here, but I don't want to be a talking head or a floating head either. I'm actually here to get some information and actually have the conversation. So on behalf of myself and the men that are out there, thank you very much for creating this panel. It gives voice, it gives light, it gives reason, it gives hope. And so that's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive right into it. We've got a lot of ground to cover tonight, so please be mindful of your response time. If we do have extra time, I'm sure I'm going to come up with a lot of questions, and even maybe some personal stories that we'll be able to share, because whenever we can share our story, I think we can connect with people on a much deeper level. You know, when we have, you know, we call this the Trinity, emotional Trinity, when we exude compassion, sympathy, and empathy. And I think we're going to have a lot of that tonight. So let's go ahead and start with the first question. And that first question definitely will go to Dr. Kelli first, and then Michael, and then we'll get the others' reaction. The reason for that is because we're talking about the court system, and I believe they are much suited to answer that question, but I'm sure that with a day-to-day life, we'll be able to have our own also perspective on that. So question number one, what are some common challenges men face in the family court system and the criminal court system? And I kind of chuckle when I say that, because we're supposed to live in a patriarchal world where men, right, are in charge of things, but we are being the victim, so to speak, of that same system we were supposed to be in charge of. So I'm going to go ahead and take a pause here, and I'm going to go to Dr. Kelli. How do you see that?
Well, honestly, Michael, I'm so glad you led with false allegations, because my first statement was going to be, how honest am I allowed to be here? But I think you've opened that door, so thank you.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think Will has a bleeper, so we can be uncensored.
Well, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I want to say that that is the biggest challenge that my clients are facing too. And to be honest, right now, I mostly have police officers as clients because I was a former police officer. And even these guys are actually like really targeted for false allegations. And it's just destroying them, destroying their careers, destroying their personal lives. Yeah, it's terrible. And what I'm really sensing, and of course they're the people alleging these crimes, is that, you know, I mean, they're not my clients, but based on the reports of my clients and whatnot, it seems that some of these women might be dealing with mental illness, and they're just getting away with these false allegations. It's ridiculous. Like, you know, my clients are telling me that there's, you know, 3, 4, 5 different versions of statements given, and the police are still entertaining it. The courts are still entertaining it, and it's ludicrous.
Crazy.
And it's taking years too, as you probably know, Michael, right, Michael?
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's terrible. Like, these guys don't have careers to go back to after this.
And let me talk to you about the terrifying intersection between family law and criminal law. I call it the false allegation playbook. So what happens is, a relationship, for whatever reason, is going south. It's not working out. They can't fix the relationship. So here's how it works. We start with 911. Mm-hmm. That typically gets the partner, who's typically the male partner, out of the house automatically. When the police show up, their investigation does not typically involve multiple witnesses. All they get is one statement, unfortunately, and that's the complainant, who's typically the female. That gets them out of the house. They're on restrictive bail conditions. They can't go back to the house. They can't see their children, if there are any, until bail is changed many months down the line, typically. And so this is what happens next. Once he's out of the house, then the woman, again, typically, knows that the financial bleeding has started. Mm-hmm. He now has to set up a new household, stay with friends, stay with parents. Yeah. He now has to hire a criminal lawyer. The bleeding continues. But wait for it, folks. Then he gets slapped with a family court application for child support and spousal support. So not only is he bleeding, because he now needs a family lawyer on top of the criminal lawyer, orders are made very quickly that he has now some sort of financial obligation because he's been locked out of his own home. So I call that the playbook. And what's terrifying, I've heard stories where in some of the shelters in Toronto, there's actually an outline for this process for people to understand, how do you get the guy out of the house? It's not as explicit as what I've said, but it's subtly suggested how to start this war. And it's truly a war. It's unfortunate.
Wow. Well, and do you want to add something? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm seeing it in non-domestic situations too, just relational situations. And I would just add to what you said, Michael, is that sometimes the women are now, like, as soon as the husband's got this ridiculous, disproportionate, unmanageable maintenance put on them, that the woman will just quit her job or fail to claim her income. I've seen that, heard of that so many times. And it's just like, you know, it's like, sorry, but it's so stressful for me because I'm trying to keep these guys from completing suicide, right? Like, it's horrible. It's that bad.
Yes. Well, as I said, then it turns into not just child support, which, you know, every father who loves his children is willing to pay regardless of the situation, but then spousal support when she quits her job intentionally. Come on.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is the same song that we have heard times and times again. Now, before I go to Rael and Lee, we've got a guest that appear here. This is Charles. So I'd like to give Charles a few minutes to introduce himself and let us know what he does. Mr. Charles, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, and it's just morning here in Namibia here. Charles Simakumba just woke up now. Yeah, it's a very early morning here in Namibia. So I'm Charles Simakumba, the co-founder of the White Ribbon Campaign Namibia. I do work with men and boys around the issues of gender-based violence, and we do coach men and boys in various ways. And we do refer men when they are in a problem such as marriage and divorce cases, where we see you talked about such a thing like divorces men. Sometimes when they're given these court orders, there's nowhere they can go. So as an organization that is working with men, we handle them and we look for somewhere we can go and where we can lean on. We say that we come together and lean on each other's shoulders, and that we support one another as men in this crisis, in this crucial time when they are, especially when it comes to divorce cases. That's exactly in short what we are doing so far in Namibia. So yes, welcome. I welcome you all.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for waking up so early to be part of this.
Definitely. At least I'm not even dozing now.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
It is now 2 o'clock here in Namibia AM.
Oh,
All
wow.
right.
Can you imagine? Yeah?
This is Rael.
Coffee?
Absolutely. Rael, we're coming over to you. I'm sure, even though, yes, you're in the States, you're not in Canada, but I'm sure it's no different from you, because men are men, no matter the country, no matter the city. So what are some of the experience or some of the things that you have heard, have witnessed when it comes to the family court and the disproportion of men that are being abused, literally, not only by the spouse, but also by the court system?
Yeah, no, we definitely see it over here in the States as well. And if you separate from your partner, and then as soon as someone claims domestic violence, you lose all of your rights. And there's laws coming around that are trying to increase that, where they're pushing for the protection of children, but only physical protection, and then allegations can be made anywhere, and then immediately you have to defend yourself. And like you were mentioning, it then becomes a criminal issue, and not only a societal thing where you're looked at as an abuser and excluded from years with your children, but at least here in the States, and I'm sure you have it there in Canada too, if a parent decides to withhold a child when they have no custodial right to do that, it's actually illegal. And it's been illegal for 50 years in the States, and in every state it's illegal. It's a felony in most states in the United States. It doesn't get enforced, sadly, because people do misunderstand this. So that's what our goal is, to help people realize your rights, so that you can then say, wait a minute, no, this is not okay. It's, you can't just claim that you're scared for no other reason just to keep the children. And people do use it definitely as a tactic. There's false information too that comes out saying that men are abusers, and women really just need the kids, and if they ever keep the kids, it's for protection, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's against the law for a reason.
Yes, it is very sad. It is very unfortunate, but this is the reality. So I do appreciate that. Lee, my friend,
so Will, there's full disclaimer, I am a separated parent, but I have never, ever been involved with the court system in this chapter of my life. When I was younger, I am a first-generation Canadian. My parents are from Haiti. So, Will, we were of a generation in time where we've existed here in Canada, and it's different, but the circumstances our parents came up in, the way they brought us up, I can only assume that I'm correct, that you had a very similar upbringing. And so in my experience, and I want to speak with honesty so that we can make that connection. So before I do that, I have to say with disclaimer, if I speak about my story, it is not to create shame. It is not to take away anybody's character. It is just the reality that I've lived. And so the next thing I'll say is, I as a man who's 38 years old, I appreciate the attributes of my father that have developed me into a positive person. But there is still this experience of wishing that my father could have been more in his time as my father. Now, all of that to say, My father had the experience of going to federal prison for domestic violence. And one of the things that I saw was the failure of the system to integrate him back. The immediate thing that happens to you is you're ostracized. You can't get a job. And so if you're going to be welcomed back into the home without identity as a man, you can't get access to purpose. You are now stuck in the same psychological state. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but I spent many years trying to figure out how the circumstances of my life came to be. Now, the challenge of that is what gets passed on. I'm now in a position as a father, and I'm in a position where there is a separation. We didn't go through any court systems, but there's this thing that gets passed on. If it's apples and trees, how far is this apple from the tree of my father? And so there's this weird thing that happens with male identity when we can look back and say, okay, well, maybe I haven't, maybe it's just a genetic thing. Maybe it's a cultural thing. There's this weird place of existence. And there's this challenging feeling of you are a man, you're supposed to have the answers, this isn't supposed to happen to you, you're supposed to be able to succeed. And then when it starts to happen to you, the resources or the knowledge of the resources are not as abundant. And so there's this, you have to wake up every day and overcome yourself. You have to wake up every day and ignore parts of yourself. You have to wake up every day and in some cases lie to yourself. Now, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. The groups of people that we're talking about here, I'm really sensitive to because there are indeed men who are experiencing the abuse from not only their partners, but also a system that isn't to their advantage. And by that, I mean, it doesn't feel equal. There is an opportunity for, and I believe it, the victim needs to be heard. And I will side with women in this situation because I've lived the physical abuse. I've seen the physical abuse. I know what it does to a person after. And my point is, the system is challenging because it automatically defaults to the protection of the woman. As I feel it should be, it protected me. However, it hasn't done a good enough job of having the pendulum swing to the other side and protect men so that good men are not admonished and ostracized and left mentally incapacitated to go through these processes. I'm curious. I'm curious about a lot of things right now because I'm sitting on another end of the spectrum, but at the same time, I mean, it could happen to anybody. I won't, and I can't say it won't happen to anybody. You gotta know who you are. But what I'm saying is, you know, Dr. Kelly mentioned it. There is an opportunity of mental health that has to be examined. I think in this current day and age, a lot of women have found success in being able to identify as the victim. And in being a participant of that role, there has been benefits. And I've seen men get torn apart. And it's sad because we lose those men as a society, right? And there's so many things that happen. And I honestly believe, myself included, I just want to be a father, right? And I think that's where I'm going to leave it and let the questions go on from there. But it's sad in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. Wow. We could have this discussion, just you and me, Lee. I mean, you really touch on a different aspect of that. And before I give my thought on this, I'd like to bring Charles back in and let us hear from him, from his perspective. How does he see the system when it comes to men in the family court? You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Well, the system back in Namibia here, I think is like just in other countries all over the world here. Yeah, men are treated as second citizens in most of their cases. And by the way, men are left out and no one goes and try to talk to men about when they are in the situation. Like just like what Lee said here, mentioned, what we need for men is we need more education and self-reflection among ourselves. So if we can go out to and reach out to men wherever they are gathering, be in the taverns, or being there at the workplace and trying to sensitize them to say, look here, if you have a problem, there is a platform or a social network, because sometimes we as men look at our women counterparts, they have a social network where they can go and seek help. What about men? Where do they go? Like Lee mentioned about his father. There is no social network for us men. We are left out as if, well, no one cares about us. So that's the reason why the White Ribbon Campaign Namibia here as an organization, we came up with this social network where we come up, we group these men and we tell them, look here, you don't have to bother with your problems. There are other men who can assist you. There are other men who can help you to heal your wound and to give you hope. And that's what we are doing right now back home in Namibia here, because we know that men are hate. But when they are hate, there must be platforms. Look at women in the country, Namibia here. I'm talking, they have shelters where a woman can go, and they have support groups. What about men? We don't have all this. Too often we talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk. That's what about us men in Namibia, you know. We too often talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk. Absolutely. Let us walk the walk right now as men. Let's stand together as men. Let's support one another.
Appreciate that, Charles. I just want to let people, the viewers, know that this is not in any way, shape, or form men against women. This is not what we're doing here. We're talking about directly, because I know, because sometimes if somebody just listen to a 10-second clip, they could like, okay, yeah, they're talking about women. This is not what we're doing. As a matter of fact, we couldn't do that because we have women on the panel here. Before I go to the next question, I myself currently right now, and I can be vulnerable, I am dealing with the court system right now that about a year ago, false allegation from my ex-wife. I got a call because she's been gone for a year, and send her an email, say, hey, what's going on? You're left with my child. Okay, it's been a year. You left everything in my house. What's going on? I'd like to see my child. But the reason why I say I waited a year, because I was dealing with some mental health issue. After sending 3 emails, which my lawyer has a copy of that, I got a call. They said, well, if you don't turn yourself in, we're going to arrest you for harassment. Why? Because I simply wanted to see my child. Now, fast forward, thank God that I never get to, get a fingerprinted or go to court. A month later, when she found out that they dropped the case, she got me arrested again for false allegation because I forced her to marry me. I forced her to have a child with me. It's preposterous to see that one phone call from a woman that separated from me from 2 years still have that hold on me, that just one phone call to get me arrested. And thank God, once again, it dropped because I was able to explain the situation. And I told the officer the whole story, because this is the same story that she used for her ex-husband to go to prison. But mama didn't raise no fool now. You know what I'm saying? So this is me dealing with the system. So you guys are talking about the system. I'm dealing with it now. Now, that's just from a male perspective. Now, as a black man, that's a whole nother different ball game. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Kelli. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to interject. We're going to go to the second question.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say, like, I'm a former policewoman, and I've seen what you're talking about. And I would say it's I don't know, like when I was a police lady, we would go after a case like a dog after a bone, and we would make sure we discovered the truth in it, right? That was the end goal, was discover the truth. Now what I'm seeing is just a complete lack of the same work ethic that we had back in the day, like an absolute failure to investigate these crimes properly. Police refusing to look at the cell phone evidence of the man, only the woman. Oh yeah, you called her. Okay, well, how many times did she call you, or whatever, and just, and yes, and Charles, just to validate what you said too, this is exactly what you said about the no resources for men. That's exactly why I took an interest in this, because I always say God opened my eyes to this issue. I was in some training, and a pro hockey player came and started telling us about his story. And I was just like, holy crap, like this is way bigger than what most of us would ever suspect, because just the lack of resources and how it all snowballed on him. And he finally turns to drugs. Well, I probably would too at that point. Anyway,
well, thank you for sharing that. We're gonna go move on to the next question, and I think it's the perfect segue to this question, and that is, what about men? What about when it comes to different ethnic men? the differences and unique challenges. And as I concluded, just a man that got away or that was able to not be used as a scapegoat, that's from a male perspective. But never mind being a black man, because we are not going to hold anything back, because if we don't talk about it, if we don't identify it, there's no way we can bring solutions, because the first step of bringing solution is to identify there is a problem. So I like to go to Lee first. The reason why I like to go to Lee, because I believe, and Lee and probably and Charles as well, can identify to what I'm saying, and then we'll take it from there. Lee, when it comes to ethnic men, what are the odds of us getting out alive? Because now we are guilty, right? Until proven innocent, and not the other way around. Over to you.
Here's what I'll say. A black man cannot afford to be angry in public. He can't afford to have his voice louder than the person that's in front of them. From a distance, and I say this respectfully. Oh, hello. Got one more person hopping in here, it seems.
Sorry, everybody, I just want to ask you a quick favor. I'm going to play a very short video from Dr. Jerome, just a few seconds, please.
Please.
Thank you.
From Trinidad and Tobago, and I am very pleased to see that once again, Voice of Men 360 has decided to have this distinguished panel discussion. I want to commend the board and the members of Voice of Men 360 for having this. This is day one of a very important topic, the family court system, men's challenges. I want to commend the host, Will, from Rising Men Alliance, and I look forward to listening to the presentations from the presenters. I want to thank all those who have tuned in this morning to listen to this very important panel discussion. Thank you.
So what I appreciate is that this is
regular program.
I appreciate that message, actually, because this is what we need to see, is that it's not isolated in different spaces. It's not class-based. This is something that affects men across the world, period. And so to the question itself, if you could, Will, just say the question again, and I want to get into the integrals of it, please.
Absolutely. Never mind being a man, but being a black man, especially in North America, how different or unique our challenges are when it comes to domestic violence, when it comes to men being heard and men given the benefit of the doubt. What do you think the uphill battle for us, not just as a man, but as a black man?
Okay, so really quickly, how many success stories do we have? Not many. I'm in a small rural community, and there isn't the ability to turn to another person who's gone through the system successfully to say, hey, what is it that I'm going to do? Back to my original point of composure. You're going through a very stressful situation, and you don't have the right to have an emotion. You have to get through the process as simply and as cleanly as possible. So anything extra is your emotion. The system is going to look at you and use borrowed identities. What is the statistical definition of a black man within the court system? Who is it that goes to court? Typically speaking, you're going to see me as a criminal. So now I have to go through this process and I have a stigma attached to myself. I have to book a day off work and explain this thing, and they're going to look at me sideways and kind of attribute me to all these. It's the financial resources, the familial support. Again, your job as a man is to keep that house whole. And if you can't keep that house whole, are you a man? And so you start to lose support. You start to lose people believing in you. You have people question. And again, there's subjective truths. They're existing in objective reality. So I have to be careful how I say the things that I'm going to say. But even as you speak your truth, it can be questioned and filtered through the stereotypical or available information that exists. By default, as a man, you have power, you have strength. Why didn't you keep it together? Why didn't you make it work? Why did you fail? It's a lot of, and it's challenging. And so I'm a Canadian. When we look at men across the board, one of the things that men have to do is we have to be aware, and we have to actually say, you know what, I am vulnerable. I'm failing in certain regards. I think one of the challenges is we haven't seen examples of men being able to speak out and say that this is something that affects me. And if it affects you too, you're human. Don't be superhuman. And I think that's one of these things that we get ourselves in a trap in. And again, the sensationalization of things that take place in the wider audience. Some stories in the media get a wider spotlight and they stay longer, and there's a very long historical loop on it. And so I can't escape O.J. Simpson.
Wow.
Right? And so what I'm trying to say is we have to be careful of falling into stereotypes. You have to be careful of just being lazy in our thoughts. But the challenge is I don't see any kind of successful process or successful example as a Black man that I can point to and say, hey, you know what? My story has value. Chances are you're going to look at me like the last person you saw. And if we're looking at the same person, their outcomes didn't end well. Their facts that came out didn't come out to their advantage. And we have to also realize that there are souls in those moments. There are people in those moments. And so when I watch these men on TV, especially, get pulled across the screen, whether they're right or wrong, what stays with me is that guy doesn't have a chance. Unless he's got enough money and a good lawyer, doesn't have a chance.
Never mind the good lawyer and the money. What about the reputation of that person that's already been stained? I mean, we could listen. I mean, you have, I believe you have spoken for almost every Black man all across the board. Whether you are able to afford a lawyer or you get whatever it is, there's still the stigma. And I love the way you talk about being lazy in our thoughts. And I think that's the problem. We are lazy in our thoughts. So I really appreciate, man, you are very passionate about this. I'm glad that we have you here tonight. And Charles, I want to come to you. Yours may be different or not, but I'd like to get your perspective on that, and then I will go to Michael, and then respectfully the two ladies that we have that are helping us on our issues as well. So, Charles, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Will. Yes, the same with Namibia here. So gender socialization also plays a role in us men today in this country, because it also hinders us not to seek help when it's needed. That's the most important thing that we need to do, at least to wake, like I said earlier, that we need education. If we are to liberate men and boys, we need to put more sensitizations to get rid of this sort of armor to say, well, I'm a man. And, always we have this thing of every man is wearing this helmet or this mask in his face that says, no, be a man. That is mostly destroying us. We need to dismantle all these things, So in Namibia here, I can say here, most men can't afford to pay a lawyer or to see a counselor or to see a therapist. It all requires money. So what should we do? How can we help these men who cannot afford all these services? That's where we as an organization, we came in, that this is how we can help them with no financial, because everything, it requires money. So most of our men gave up and said, look here, I'm not working. I don't have a job. What can I do? I need help. Where can I get the help? So I think we just dismantle this social construction of what it means to be a man. A man can be caring. A man can be supportive. A man can be compassionate. They need to understand all these attributes in our country. Over to you, Will, in short.
I appreciate that. Now, Michael, I'm coming to you. We're talking about different ethnic. Visually, we wouldn't call you or put you in the category as ethnic men, right? But all joke aside, at the end of the day, you're still a man. Whether you were fighting for your own rights or whether you were representing a Black man, how does that change or not change your view when it comes to men of color or when it comes to men altogether? But in that instance, we're talking about different ethnic group, not just Black. It could be different group. But what is your take on that?
I find sometimes as part of my overall battle, I also have to battle the issue of ethnic stereotypes. They certainly do creep up in the system. They're not as overt as they used to be, perhaps a decade ago, but there is still some subtlety there with respect to people from different ethnic groups and different stereotypes. I think it all boils down again to education of law enforcement. I think we're getting better, at least in Canada, but there's still a lot of red flags. I'll give you an example. One of my best friends from high school, he decided to become the police officer. I became the criminal lawyer. He gave up a pension with the Toronto Police Service and resigned because he found over time he was just becoming a RoboCop, gathering statistics, not being able to use discretion. He used to be able to show up at a domestic assault call, for example, and actually investigate and look into any, if there were any cultural issues or were there any things of that nature that may impact on the investigation and take that into account in his investigation. But he said sometime after that discretion was taken away from him. Attorney General came down with policy guidelines for domestic assault cases, for example, and he became RoboCop. He had to put his blinders on, show up. Like he said, previously I would show up at a call like this and I would tell the guy, I'll give you 3 options. If there were no injuries or visible fighting, he'd say, I can drop you off at a motel, I can drop you off at a friend's house, or you're coming to the police station with me. Which do you want? Mm-hmm. You can't stay here tonight. She's pissed. So I'm going to help you by removing you from the situation, and then we'll see where things go. But I'm not going to charge you because I'm using discretion. I'm taking into account the ethnicity, the culture. I'm taking into account what's just happened because let's face it, different cultures have arguments in different ways, right? And it's true. And
I laugh because I totally agree. And as Lee may testify to that, us as Haitian men, we speak loud. We are not mad. But if you were to say that we are mad, then we become mad because we weren't mad. So, my goodness. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Right. So it's just the lack of discretion now. They truly have, in many cases, become RoboCops, and it's terrifying. They just can't take into account the individual family, the ethnicity, the cultural situation of the family, what's happening. It's just blinders.
Right. I appreciate that.
Can I just top on that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to go to Dr. Kelly.
As a visible minority, the police are now in my presence. I have one shot to say everything right, or that's it. There's no 2 takes, and so it is a very it's an uncomfortable feeling. So I think Charles might be able to help me with this part of the conversation too. My parents are from Haiti. Their experience with the law enforcement, the military. If you are now a first-generation Canadian or first-time just newly immigrated and you have to deal with the police, your experience is going to go back to what it was before. And now there's a disconnect. There's a lot of different variables that are taking place. I'm glad that this police officer in this instance gave 3 choices. What a humanity piece to have. As soon as the police show up, I think I only have one choice. I think I'm already in trouble. I think there is no discretion. That's what I'll say.
You're right. That's what it is today.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Charles, did you want to add something real quick before I go to Dr. Kelly?
No, I think I'll just talk later on first of all. It's okay.
Perfect. Now, Dr. Kelly, here you are in front of a man, a black man. I needless to say anything else. I just put it that way. Talk to me.
Well, actually, I wanted to validate a few of the points that Lee and Michael made. Michael, very fair point about discretion, for sure. And I mean, I think they've reversed some of these laws for good reason in some instances, or reversed some of the policies, I should say. Although, yeah, it seems like it's gone to the point of ridiculous now. What I'm seeing is that, all charges are being forwarded against men, whether or not they're ridiculous, and no charges of perjury have yet to be forwarded against any female who is pretty much, you know, proven to be lying. So just wanted to say that point. And then Lee, I just wanted to validate your point about having to maintain your composure and always having to, you know, just, you know, be absolutely emotionless when dealing with police, for example. Whereas I want to say that what I'm seeing and from my clients is that the opposite appears to be true as well, where these women are so emotive, whether they're lying or not. If they're crying while they say they've been raped, the police automatically believe them, even though it's not true. Like, I've had 2 cases in the last year that aren't true. So, you know, I mean, and this is Crown saying, this is a Crown Counsel, you know, of course I'm hearing through my clients, but Crown Counsel saying these are unfounded charges, you know, and the women are adamantly trying to claim rape.
Wow. And the problem is, the bigger problem is there are some women that are real victim. And what do we do? And it's just, it's really hurtful. Rael, I want to come to you. And again, the same question. And then of course, you know, the U.S. is at the forefront. Of course, the U.S. is at the forefront. We've seen a lot of things, not as much as Canada. We see a lot. What are your take and what are some of the experience that you have come across when it comes to that kind of the system against men, especially against Black men?
So I think you're right. Obviously, I cannot personally identify with being an ethnic man in, you know, in the family courts or any of the systems, but I wouldn't want to be either. So I can speak to the fact that I have seen it obviously in my community, and we know the statistics. There are more women that parentally kidnap children. You know, it's close to 50-50, but there's more. And so I know, especially in communities near me, you definitely, when exactly what Lee was saying, when you cannot afford to be angry, if you are an ethnic man and you get pulled over, yes, sir, and nothing else, you know, you can't talk back, where unfortunately females do get that leeway. They do get to mouth off and cry and have all these emotions that can take over, and it looks so negatively on an ethnic man. So, I mean, we see the same thing here.
Right.
And I just,
yeah, Dr. Kelly, you want to add something?
Sorry, you know, one thing I've said to my clients that I feel is a valid point for here too, like, please look at Nicole Kidman. She's a brilliant actress. So are so many other women, right? I could act, I could play the part, I could lie and cry and probably convince you of these things. Like we need to open our eyes to the fact that this is happening. People need, you know, anyway.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
wish I could cry like that.
Yeah, me too. I don't know if I could cry, but I could probably lie if I wanted to, you know?
Yes. Charles, did you want to come in and add something before?
Just to add on Dr. Kelly, what he mentioned about, you know, it's so painful because most of our men, they found themselves, you know, I worked in the correctional service 5 years ago, and I found so many men have been accused for raping these women, which was a false. I can give you my story. It happens to me. I took one lady who came to my house, I think it was maybe 15 years ago, and she saw that I had everything in my house. We agreed upon to say, look, I'm going to give you this amount of money at my house. And when I arrived there in the house, she saw all the properties. No, I have everything in the house. She started demanding that, no, if you don't give me now more than this, I'm going to report you. This happens to me. It's my story that I'm talking right now. And I was afraid that, no, yes, I'll go there. What happens? We agreed with 200. I have to give more. I say, if you don't give me what I want right now here, but we agreed that, no, look here, when we go there, we're together, you take this amount of money. And yes, and that was absolutely agreed. But after she saw the things that, no, I have everything in my house, she started demanding now that, no, if you don't give me this amount of money that I want now, you know what happens to men. She told me that woman, no, you know what happens to men. I said, yes, I know. Just in my head, I said, yes, I know, but it's okay, take. I don't want it. Please go. That's all. So most of our men, they found themselves behind bars in this situation. That's why I said, now, how best can we help? So we need also women to help us to come. You know, we need each other here. Yeah, it's not only the situation of saying, well, we stand with women. Like me, I'm the supporter and activist for women. The empowerment of women, of course, is of paramount importance to us. At the same time, also, we need to liberate men. and to educate
Yes.
the men around these
Oh,
issues.
Charles, you brought such a great point. We need women to be our ally, so we can
Our
cry
allies.
at the rooftop. But if we can have if we can have women to be our ally to help the other
Yes, you see
women
now.
that are using this against us, and you talk about something about finding their identifying with those men that have the tendency of losing control or not having someone to help them. They're just like looking. They're like predators, so to speak. I'm sorry to use that, but it seems to me that some women, not all of them, obviously, finding those men and all, they're just preying on them. And again, there's a lack of education on our part as well that we have to do to make sure that we don't fall prey into this. And I can remember I was 23 years old. I just got engaged and I had just lost my job. And all of a sudden, men were calling my house. This is the time where we have pagers, right? We didn't have cell phone, wasn't. And then all of a sudden, other men were calling my house, and I felt like it was very disrespectful. All of a sudden, I lost my job, and men are calling my house. So fast forward, and I talked to her. I said, why men are calling my house now? And she, all of a sudden, I was in the room. She pulled out a knife from me and tried to do something to me.
Do something, yeah.
And I'm like, my gosh. I mean, it was just me and her. And she was a light-skinned woman. So when I held her hands, it turned red. And I'm like, I'm done. There's a woman that put out a knife. I'm trying to save myself. And I ran out of the house so fast. And I never went back. And I thank God, because imagine if I had stayed. Imagine if I had lost my composure. Imagine if I had somehow just didn't do something to her. Could you imagine what could have happened? So it is something that we have dealt with before in the past. We are dealing with today. It is very hard, but again, and I think this discussion that we're having tonight, it is much needed. It is a long time coming. I think I could even say that we're a little late, but you know what? Better late than never. So I'm glad that we're having this discussion. So hopefully, hopefully we're all raising awareness. And again, I think we do need our women as well to help us, because we are a community, right? We are a community. When one of us suffer, which I'm going to get to the third point, which is a great segue. How do these challenges or problems affect men, boys, and other family members? It does affect us. It does affect us. And as an emotional men's coach, I teach men about emotional intelligence, and I tell them it's 5 steps. The first step is, because I call it emotional constipation, because we say men don't express our emotions. That is not true. If you look at the prison system, 90% of them are men. If we look at the domestic violence, although it's been done against men as well, but we don't have statistics for that. So therefore, we're going to say against women. And now when you look at the suicidal rate, so men are expressing our emotion, but not in a way that is constructive, but is destructive. So what I tell men is, the first thing you have to do, you have to identify what emotion that you're feeling. What is it? Is it anger? Is it rage? Whatever it is that you can identify. And the second thing you have to do is to you have to acknowledge it. I'm feeling this way, but don't just shove it somewhere. You have to acknowledge it. The third you have to be able to verbalize it. Fourth, you have to be able to manage it. And that's exactly so. Those challenges, those problems, they're affecting boys. That's gonna become a man. They're affecting men, because now they no longer have access as a rightful citizen. But also it's affecting the family. Imagine if they have children. Imagine what it's doing to them. Yes, go ahead, Michael. Go take it away.
No, I would add a point number 5. Those are great 4 points, but point number 5 has to be to channel all of this in a constructive, positive way. Okay, I'll have clients sitting in front of me saying, I can't believe this. There's no evidence. Why should I have to pay you? I don't even need a lawyer. This is all going to go away. What's the evidence? I say, sir, the evidence is her statement. So That's it. That's all the police need.
Yes.
These charges. So let's channel your disbelief into something constructive and forming a defense plan or strategy versus just this kind of, like you said, anger, outrage, disbelief. We have to learn to channel that down to something constructive.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that. And as I was saying, how it affects us in terms of us being able to reintegrate in society. But more than that, because this is materials with all that, more than that, what about our mental? So I think we forget about that. You know, yes, we could be losing our home. Yes, we could have criminal charges. That's fine. I've known men that come out of it, they're all doing great. But what about the long-lasting impact it's having in the mental? And that's the part that I want to really hone in tonight, because I believe that men, and especially, I don't know about for the rest of Canada or United States, but what I found in Quebec is there are no resources because there are no men are coming forward. And tonight, I think we want to normalize men coming forward to say, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm dealing with. How can I get better? So that way I don't perpetuate this same behavior that happened to me. Lee, I'm going to go to you.
So what was the third step? Because that third step really lit a light bulb in me. Will, in your step, you have 5 steps. What's your third step?
The third step was to verbalize.
Perfect.
Verbalize. Can we verbalize it without looking angry, without yelling? How can we verbalize how we're feeling?
You're cooked. Because that's where the bottleneck's going to happen. I'm now frustrated because I can be aware, I can acknowledge, I'm now taking the step to verbalize. Who am I verbalizing to? I in my rural community, I don't know the 1-800 numbers. In my rural community, even in my wider thinking, I lived in the GTA. I don't have people in my life that have gone through the system to say that these are the junctures, these are the points, these are the intersections, this is the place that you go to. So my verbalization within myself, now I can't talk to anybody. Now I'm just talking to myself. Now I can't go anywhere. And now I'm questioning myself. Now I'm asking about my identity. What am I worth? And then it becomes, when you're asking yourself about your self-worth and then you can't see your kids, and then maybe you don't have job security, maybe you don't have house security. If that Maslow hierarchy of needs is not being taken care of, even if I wanted to verbalize, all of these different pressures are taking place that are changing how I feel inside. So to your point, how do we not pass that on? I will tell you that awareness is the first step to everything. Action is what follows next. If I was raised in an environment where I know that domestic violence was not positive for me, the most important gift that I can give my child is to not pass that on. That's my covenant with myself. However, that aside, once you go through these very, very chaotic moments, especially in the very beginning, there's something that you do to yourself. You dismiss yourself, you devalue yourself, and then you've got to build yourself back up. But there are no places per se to build yourself back up unless you have this really good, strong integrity or great community or something. You begin to say that you're not worth it. And then you might start making decisions that are worth less, because guess what? Who cares? What's the worst? And then this is where the entrance into, I need to escape my mind. What do I do? I have all these emotions that are bottled up. What do I do? This is where drugs, alcohol, this is where bad habits, this is where, and what I like about what we're doing right now is we're coming together as a community. A lot of men will not leave their home to have this conversation. A lot of men are not going to feel comfortable to say, because you're asking me to be sensitive. You're asking me to admit something. The most important thing that we have to do, if you're wrong, you're wrong. But you also have to admit to the circumstances. You have to appreciate it, what it is. There's a certain amount of frustration in chasing the why. And I'm not saying every case is the same, but I think in a lot of moments, when something happens to us that has no explanation, we get lost looking for an answer. And I know that the answer is a promise to ourselves that we're worth something. We deserve an answer. However, in some cases, that answer never comes. And that's where the turmoil, why did this happen to me? Am I a bad person? Did I not try hard enough? I'm a father. I love my kids. Why? And it becomes this thing. And so if you don't have an ability to stop that looping of thought, if you don't have an ability to step out of yourself and really say, you know what? This is a circumstance. The circumstance is not me. I will overcome it. I will persevere. I will be who I am. I think there's a challenge in getting lost to the circumstance and just saying, you know what, who cares? I don't know of a solution. I don't know of a success story. And you just become a statistic, personally.
Oh my gosh, my God. Dr. Kelli, coming to you. We know the ripple effect, but how deep and how deep does that go? And how do we minimize the effect that's having not only on the man himself, never mind the man, but the children or even the family member?
Well, honestly, I think, the effect, that really depends on their pre-trauma supports. It really depends on their post-trauma resources and their post-trauma supports too. So, I couldn't agree more. Awareness, discussions, exposure, that kind of thing. Honestly, like, I think we need to be having these discussions, which include women in support of men in the situations, right? You're right. We need education towards like the judges, the courts, and the police about, mental illness. And we need to see some of these perjury charges come forward.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, once you go into the system, it stays there forever. And that's the unfortunate thing. Michael, I want to come to you. As a lawyer, are you able to? Someone has been charged with something so ridiculous, falsely charged. How hard is it for you for this man to regain his reputation and be able to navigate to society, to the world without having a chip on his shoulder and have to worry about, well, if someone accused me again, will that look like I'm guilty because I've been charged previously, or would that remove me from having access to my children?
It's a huge burden people carry regardless of the outcome of a case. For example, I just spent past week in London, Ontario, doing a she says sexual assault case. Young man meets a woman at a house party. They are affectionate. They want to become intimate. They go into his car parked on the street. There's a sexual encounter there. And at the end of it, they exchange Instagram information. A year later, he's charged with rape. We had the trial this week. She testified, he testified. She wasn't very convincing. He was, because he was telling the truth. So the Crown just stopped the case. And this is very rare. And the Crown said, look, I'm inviting the judge to acquit, and which basically means dismiss the charges. So the case finished in that way. But, he still walked out of that courtroom scratching his head. And you could see the weight. Obviously, some weight was removed from him. But now all the questions start. Well, can I travel to the States now? What about those fingerprints that are at the police station? Are they going to stay there forever? What about my family, or what about my friends who are kind of saying, well, she seemed kind of convincing? So the burden continues regardless of an acquittal for especially these young men. So I think he's going to carry it with him for a long time. And then we talk about the ripple effect. So the ripple effect is now going to be future relationships. He's going to almost be I don't know how as a young man you date these days, quite frankly. I don't know. I'd be terrified to be on the dating scene right now, because it's like the turning to the system when you're a disgruntled young woman it's like a complaint system. And that's what happened in this case. She was jilted and she made this story up. So it has so many ripple effects on him. I don't know if you can ever get through it.
Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. Rael, coming to you. I mean, I know there's a lot that has been said, but from a female perspective and from across the border, has anything that's been said so far? What are some of the common denominator and some of the things that have been said so far in regards to how the effect is gonna impact the man, not just physically or financially, never mind that, but psychologically, mentally? Would you say that this is one of the reasons why most men are driving themselves to commit suicide?
Yes, I'm sure that it feels hopeless. And so what Michael was just sharing is that I feel like it's going backwards, where women now, groups are going and saying, no, like we need protection. And I'm not saying we don't, but everybody needs protection. Everybody needs to be held accountable. Everybody needs to be safe. And it shouldn't be a men against women thing. We fought for so hard to get into the workplace. And now we can't go backwards saying like, oh, well, it's always the men. It's not the case. Like, I feel like we should know that by this day, for sure. And as soon as you start entering into the family court system, you are at a very, very crucial point. You can feel angry and unjustly, even if there are allegations, it would be totally accurate. And if you go to start reacting, you're going to take one path that is just going to keep ruining your life. And to make the right choice, to suck it up and take it for years, which is what it takes to get through the family court system, is almost unimaginable. But you can do it. It's just unbelievably hard. And at least in any of the groups I'm in, I don't see men coming for support. I don't know why it's like, well, yeah, she moved out and she took all the kids and that's that. And he has to just pay. It shouldn't be like that. But men, I feel like, don't speak out. And I think that that's why this kind of thing is important, to say, no, you guys have the right, and you have to deal with that trauma. You have to deal with the grief, and you definitely have to channel it. I came into advocating, and that was so helpful, because I am in a helpless situation, even as a female, and I'm sure everybody can relate. So you have to be able to have some control of it. And if it's not in your own personal case, you can have control of speaking out and educating and helping others.
There was a question, I believe, if Stefan, if you could put it back in, and I believe it says, how feasible or worthwhile is it to pursue the following? I believe some of these are in various stages of implementation in the U.S. This is to you, Rael. Do you understand? Do you understand the question? Since you are in the States, could you speak on that for briefly, please?
Yeah, so I see here parental alienation. I saw shared parenting, mandatory paternity test at birth, punitive damages, compensation
for false paternity
claims. Yeah, I mean, every state is different. So I know in Texas, for example, they have enacted some custodial interference laws. So although it's not labeled parental alienation, as we know, when you are an alienator, you will withhold the children. So custodial interference is the withholding of children for custody, and it's sort of like a black and white issue. It's not as much parental alienation, but it's against the law. So in Texas, they have actually passed some laws now that have custodial, they acknowledge it, and there's an ordinance so that you can get a ticket. It's very common knowledge. They've put proclamations out about custodial interference, and they have the new laws. They've acknowledged the issues that we have there, and hopefully states are taking the lead with this and moving on. I know in Pennsylvania, we're very excited about an amendment that's pending, and we have more and more people getting this law enforced. So that's not the parental alienation piece, but it's one of the symptoms or signs that is coming along slowly here, even though this has been a law in the books for 50 years. And I don't know what other ones were in the question. I was trying to look.
But I think you, for the most part, you did answer the question, so I do appreciate that.
Great, thanks.
But
we still are not enforcing false allegations, which we need to. There's a reason that it's happening.
Right.
If you're not going to get in trouble, why not do it? Why not? I mean, you could just keep your kid and lie about it. There's really no skin off your back, and you might get your kids. So,
right.
We definitely need to have that enforced.
It's the point. I had 2 false allegations made against me. Both were dropped. Didn't go to court to even take a fingerprint, just to show you how absurd those charges were. But guess what? She's still out there free with my child. It's been 4 years, guys. Going on 5 years, I haven't seen my child. And my lawyer says, my suggestion to you, Will, you've got 2 other children. Focus on them. How can you tell a man, oh, you know what? Focus on the 2 that you have right now, because you're better off focus on these 2, because this one, if you try to pursue it, not only may turn against you, but you may lose the other 2. This is what you tell a father that was abandoned by his mother and his father. And my whole goal in life was to be a great father. Now you're telling me, you're telling me to be content with what I already have because I may lose it all. Okay, now this is what really drove me crazy to tell me it is insane. And guess what?
This is
She's
where we
living her
need
life.
protection. They should be that is bullying. You know, it can't be like that person's very, very difficult and it's going to be very, very horrible for you. So just give up and run away. I mean, I think that we've all said that we can't, that's not the way to handle this.
And to make matters worse, social services call me because somebody called, my goodness, and said that my child was being abused, but I couldn't do anything. Social services find me and let me know. So just to show you how deep this problem is. And now the next question is, what should we do? And what can we do without looking like a victim? Because someone who's listening to me may say, oh, you're just playing a victim. No, I'm not playing a victim. I'm just letting you know exactly what happened. How, I'm going to go with you, Charles, answer that question. What do you think we can do as men without looking like a victim? You're on mute.
Let me mute myself.
You're still muted.
Oh, okay. Am I right now?
Yes.
Yeah, what is needed for us is we need more sensitization and awareness on this issue, for us men. So, we have to know that, we too are also vulnerable. Yeah, if we can understand the thing, different men will be in the forefront of coming out. Yeah, I'd say, we are victims of the system as well. So we are open. So what we need is sensitizations and awareness around this issue. And at the workplace and also at the place where men are gatherings. So if there's no awareness, and also we need to trust, men need trust as well. If we trust, if men are trusting us, they'll be more able to come and say their stories. You get the point there. So what is needed is sensitization and awareness on this issue that is in short. If we don't have awareness, to see that men will be heading over problems after problems because no one reaches out to them. There is no information for them. But once the information is there and once the space is there, men need the space as well to engage on each other, to lean on each other's shoulders and say, look here, brother, I have gone to the simplest situation. Are we doing that? That's one thing that we as men. If we can come together and say, look here, Lee, I got a problem here. Maybe Lee might have gone through or overcome this challenge here. He is able to help me. So what we need is to open up, men to be open themselves. We don't have to say, but this is not a challenge. It's not for us. We are given. We don't say the state don't want to hear us. The states are open to us. Laws in every country, they are open to both men and women. But our men, they're still having those traditional norms and values that I'm a man, you should not cry, don't show emotions. So these are things that are damaging us as men. Let's
absolutely. I agree, because there's this notion of, men, we tend to have surface level conversation. Because I remember, those barbershop talk that we have, we ought to change that. We ought to now being able to be a safe space. We're asking other people, like women, to be a safe space for us, but are we being a safe space for each other? And I think that is very important, that we need to mention that. Let's stop talking. It's okay to talk about sports. It's okay to talk about cars. It's even okay to talk about the ladies. We love them, but I think it is more important. We'll do ourselves more good in the long run when we go to the barbershop to start talking about, and this is one of the reasons why for the past 2 years, I rarely ask a man how he's doing. I ask him how he's feeling, because at the end of the day, we are not human doing, we are human beings. And when I ask him and I look him dead in the eyes, I say, I do not want those surface level answer. I want to know how you're doing. 9 times out of 10, within 5 seconds, they start crying. Why? Because now I show care. I show sympathy. I show compassion. Now, because I want to create that space for men, so that way they don't look like they talking from a victim perspective, but for someone that have gone through something. Now, Rael, tell me quickly. We're coming at the end. We still have one more question, and of course, we want to kind of share a little bit of our personal stories. What can we do from your own perspective as men without looking like a victim, without being, we look like we are just speaking, but no real substance.
Yeah. So you have to know when and where to do that. And you have to do that because it's traumatizing. So you have to go to get support. You have to deal with your feelings and the grief. And then you have to channel it into something else. Because when you go in there saying, well, he said it, she said it, and then it just becomes you getting a piece of the problem. And going and telling your story doesn't have to be all of the wrongs that happened to you. When you go to report a crime, for example, there's 2 ways to do it. Be like, he said he was going to drop him off and he didn't, and then I said it, and that looks like in the middle of a he said, she said, versus it's my custodial time and I have the right to report a crime as a victim. And just knowing your rights and having, a plan on what to do and knowing what you're allowed to push for. And doing it in an assertive way versus an aggressive way. And when we're feeling the trauma and the grief and we're not heard and this is out of control, that's when we start speaking louder and feeling frustrated and we're putting too many feelings in it and then our message is lost.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd like to give each of us 60 seconds to answer the question because I'm going to hand it over to Savan for a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back for the last question. So, Michael, in 60 seconds, what can we do without looking like a victim?
I think the key, especially in the context of criminal litigation or family law litigation, is always, always, always bring a fact-based, measured approach, okay? Judges are sick and tired of the vomit game. Imagine in family court, it's basically an invisible garbage can, and judges just expect everyone to throw up in it. Don't throw up. Bring facts to the case. Bring a measured response. Bring believable, credible witnesses to your case. But don't just spew garbage. Judges just tune out.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And I would even add to that, compose yourself, because I believe you may have a good message, but in the delivery of that message, it may get lost. So I think it's very important that you compose yourself. Lee, over to you. What can we do without looking like a victim, even though you and I look like a victim already, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what can we do to minimize that?
So I'm going to say 2 things. If there is a heteronormative relationship out there, a husband and a wife, please allow your husband to be a friend to somebody who's going through something hard. By that, I mean, sometimes if a person is going through something and they pivot to somebody and say, listen, I don't know where to go, what to do. Sometimes there's this stigma of, I don't want you going over there and giving that much time to that individual. That's their situation. Leave it alone. I will tell you what saved my life was being able to have a friend in my space for that initial period of time until things became logical. The second thing that I'll add is when we're talking to men, and I do this with staff members, if I really care and I want to know, if I ask you, how are you? We as human beings have the automated response. I'm fine. I'm going to ask you 3 times. How are you? I'm fine. How are you? How are you? Well, man, you really have to, I think, dig a little bit so that somebody can feel like you're present for that, but also recognizing that there's the initial automated, I want to go on with my day, I don't want to talk about it, because once it opens up and I'm vulnerable, what does it mean? Do I get my kids back if I tell you my story? If I tell you my story and I told the judge the story and the judge didn't care, my lawyer can't do nothing, why am I going to speak more if nobody cares? So it's really important for us when we ask, we want to find that answer to get it out. Men that are speaking, get it out. Practice getting it out. And by that, I mean, you have to hear your thoughts come out of your mouth to recognize what the truth of the situation is. But if you keep a million thoughts in here, you're going to go crazy a million times. You can only speak once. So you will agree with what needs to be said so that you know that you are telling your own truth. You need to speak it out to get it out, please.
Absolutely. Dr. Kelli, over to you. Quickly, what can we do? You're on mute, by the way. What can we do without looking like a victim?
I agree with everything everybody has said so far. I agree. Go talk to somebody first, whether it's a peer or a professional. Get the emotions out. Yes, have these discussions. I love that. We have to have this happening. But I also want to add evidence too, right? In today's day and age, cameras. You know, like I've supported several clients who have been wrongfully accused. One of them, he locked himself in the basement, and his wife came downstairs with he was on an air mattress watching a movie on his computer. His wife came downstairs and stabbed the air mattress. And I don't even know if he took that air mattress to the police to show them, right? They just saw her defensive wounds, stuff like that. Like, so, you know, and things like, I had another client, like a voicemail, right? Like, bring these things to the police when you come, right? Like, so yeah, if there is evidence, or if there's any way you can gather any sort of evidence, that helps you not to look like a victim, but to present your case in a honest fashion.
Absolutely. And I remember when my ex-wife left the house, and thank God I had a camera, and I saw when the police and her come into the house, and I had to tell them, I said, do you have a court order? And I said, why are you going to my house? I said, you need to leave now. I said, let me speak to your supervisor. Well, that was pretty quick, and then left the house because she had no right to come to my house. But had I not seen that she had gone to my house, she could have planted any evidence, which I have that done to me as well. So speaking about, you know, camera, recording of messages and all that kind of stuff, all of those things are very, very important. And I'm glad that you bring that up. So I'm going to go ahead, before we get to the last question, I want to go ahead and hand it over to Sivam. Sivam, over to you.
Hello. Thank you, everyone. Really heating up, I know. But I just want to quickly jump in and then give you guys some information, those audience who was watching. One thing is that we will have another session tomorrow, and it's going to be part 2 or day 2, I would say. This is going to be tomorrow. There will be some special guest speaking, sharing their challenges or their experiences on that too. Same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time to 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's one. And then also we do have our weekly, monthly programs. Open Up is one of them. It's called Open Up on Sundays evening, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then Tamil show in the morning time, 8 a.m. And then podcast, of course, all of our shows are available on 6 platforms, including iPhone, Google Play, and so on. This panel discussion and all of our shows will be converted to audio podcast, and then you can see it, you can hear it actually from your phone. And then monthly men's group meeting, only for men, by men, second Saturday of every month from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern time through Zoom, no recording. Please join through Zoom. The link is available on our Facebook page. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you want to be a guest on any of our shows or willing to be part of our organization and help us directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. Phone number is 226-289-8784. 226-289-8784. Email address info@voiceomen360.org. Website www.voiceomen360.org. You can find us on all the social media. Facebook, we do have group and page. Join us our group so you can see our daily activities. Please invite your friends. And other social media platforms are Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Voice-Omen360. We do have probably nearly, I would say, 500 episodes on various topics, so you can see it. One thing I want to tell you guys is that all the videos, promo videos, thank you all of the guests and other people for sending promo videos. Thank you, Dr. Jerome, sending you a video too. One information is that as you are watching and then taking this information, please share with other people. So this way we can reach out more people, and also we can serve more people. Thank you. Will, over to you.
All right, I appreciate it. coming back to regular program. So as we're winding down, I'd like to know the question that I have, which is, we can take it anywhere we want to. We're going to keep it very brief. Is that where do we go from here? As each of us are here, whether we represent an organization, a nonprofit organization, or a private practice, where do we go from here? And how can we collectively minimize, reduce? We know we cannot eliminate, because it's been around for so long. I don't think we can eliminate it from overnight. But what can we do from this point forward to minimize, reduce, or find a way to have a better system to make sure that our men, I can't believe I'm saying that in 2024, our men and our boys are protected? I'm going to start with you, Charles.
Well, thank you so much, Will, and everybody saw as well. Yes, we need to involve all the stakeholders, such as the Minister of Justice, and also to involve all the business community as well on this issue. And then second one, again, we need to hold some workshops and sensitization in our schools. I think it will help us best if we can do that in short.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Over to you, Rael. What can we do? I mean, we're not gonna lose hope. There's a saying that says the most dangerous men is not the men with power, but it's the men that feel powerless. Let me say that again. The most dangerous man is not the man with power, but it's the men that feel powerless. And there was a point in my life that I felt powerless. Nothing else mattered to me. But thank God I was able to come back to my senses and go into therapy, and that I'm still here today. What do we do? Where do we go from here?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that personally was something, and that I also see in our, in our groups, is that you need to change your pain to purpose, because you do feel so powerless. It is totally out of control. You have to channel to change. So, but first you have to deal with that trauma, like we've said, in another place where it belongs, acknowledge it's going to happen, deal with the grief into trauma. And then you do have to, turn that pain into purpose, make a change, speak out, advocate for your rights, learn your rights. In our group on facebook.com, Enforce ICC, we have a video where we teach you steps to get the laws enforced. So learn the facts. The facts are out there, instead of just complaining. There's groups like DAVIA, that is Domestic Abuse and Violence International Alliance, and they're a wonderful organization that has all groups that are pushing that men are victims of domestic violence too. That's exactly the information that they're putting out. And there's so many great organizations that are doing this, and it's not going to change until everybody can collect together and change their pain into purpose, get through their situation, and then say, this isn't right and we need to change it.
And what I have here, is there anything personally or personal experience that you have encountered when it comes to, and I'm sure you probably have men in your life, whether it's a partner or a son, a cousin, a brother, anything that was close to home, not from a client in professional standpoint, but a personal level, because I'm sure that it will come out a little bit different. Have you had any experience on a personal level when it comes to men and boys and violence?
For me personally, not in my life personally. Luckily, like my personal family, we haven't dealt with it. I've been on the other end. So, but I have sons, and I am scared about what could happen when they get into a relationship and what could be set up for them. And that would be something that I would caution them about, and probably come off skeptical at first, but I've seen the way it goes down.
Wow. The key words here, I am scared. That's what you said. So imagine the man, how he feels. I mean, this is crazy. Michael, what can we do collectively? And I know you are helping already. Is there, is there anything more that you can do that other than what you're already doing? And do you have any close to home a story that you could share with us?
Well, I think we have to start asking the question why more often. And I'll give you an example. I'll often get domestic cases where the wife has the husband charged, the process starts, and then the next day she's changing her mind. She loves him. She wants him back. She didn't mean to. And then you have that first meeting with the Crown attorney after she has tried to contact the Crown, contact Victim Witness Assistance Program. And you have to just ask the question, why is this going ahead? Why? Why does the system have to bulldoze this? And then when you have the judicial pretrial, which is a pretrial meeting that follows the Crown pretrial, you have to ask the judge, why is this going ahead? We have an affidavit from the woman says nothing happened. Why can we not take our blinders off and realize this is just a huge waste of resources and perpetuating trauma on this family? So ask why, folks. Wherever you're in a situation where something feels wrong, ask the person who has authority. Why? Politely, measured, but why?
You know, it's funny you say that. I'm sure there's a deeper reason behind it, but we're not going to reveal it or speculate on that. But that's a great question. It leaves you ponder why. Why do we go forward with this after the person has recanted their story? Why? Anyway, over to you, Lee. What can we do? Are we doing enough? Are we not doing enough? Where do we go from here?
So I'm going to try to move through this question in a few different ways. What was lacking in the previous generation before us? The ability to communicate. And so what I'm seeing in the schools, what I'm seeing coming out is that there are boys and men that are being able to communicate their emotions better. That's very important. Yeah. From there, moving up in terms of men in circumstances, suicide is a very real thing. When you take away the identity, the value of a man, it becomes very hard to live. And so what I would say to men is there are greater days waiting. The answer that you're looking for, even though it's not here today, you have to have patience and persistence to be able to make it to the day where the answer comes through. And sometimes, I respect what Michael's saying. Please do ask why to the system. But sometimes there are moments where the why is not coming, but the why is not greater than your value. To answer your question, Will, what should we be doing? This is what we should be doing. We should be having conversation. I think if there was an opportunity for somebody to look across the room and go, oh, that's me over there, there's an ability for them to then want to relate. And once we're in relation, we're in a humanity, right? It is when we are isolated from reasons, logic, conversation that we get stuck in ourselves. So having these kinds of forums out there to invite us, to give us permission to feel is very important. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for making this space occupied with the spirit of men in mind. But before I go, I'm responsible. There's information that I'm supposed to gather. Michael, I would like to send you an email because there's this. I don't have the answers and people are looking for them. The question is, what is process? What is a good process supposed to look like? How do I know I'm being taken advantage of, or how do I know that I'm actually doing the right things? What are rights? I don't know where to look for those rights, and I'm sure that there's a legal office that can help me, but guess what? I'm in Canada and nobody has enough resources. There's never enough time. Those phone calls don't all get answered. The next question is, what are facts? How do I present? Going back to Dr. Kelly's point, what is the best way for facts to be put forward? Again, I know there's a lot of emotion, but if I'm going to provide structured documents, what kind of structure should I be abiding by? And the last question, I guess, would be, what is the first thing you should do and what is the last, right? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to react. And I don't want men to react in such a way that they hurt themselves further. And then what's the last thing that we should be doing? Because if I'm going through this court process, what should the last moment of court feel like so that I know that this is concluded? And so the last thing that I would like to say is don't give up. Know thyself. You're a father. There is a little human being, or many of them, that are relying on you and looking up to see what you're going to pass on. It's apples and trees. I know that you may not be able to have the fortitude for yourself. It may not make sense, and there might be no reason why, but those kids are going to inherit your ability to cut through these things. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. And it's not your fault in some cases. But if it is your fault, that's my point. Know thyself. If you have done something wrong, address that so that you can move back into your place of humanity. If we keep victimizing ourselves, we're going to lose this ability to actually be in relation. And I think this is a problem with society. The base unit of society is family. If men and women, heteronormative situations that produce babies are not able to come together and continue society, we're going to be challenged. And I don't want that to be the world that we live in. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be present. I'm going to support. I'm going to be able, hopefully, to point people in the right direction. But I don't want people to think that they are the only ones that have gone through this and they don't think they can go through it by themselves. I want them to know that there's a way through this.
Wow. You touched on 2 points. The first one is know thyself. You know, Socrates says the knowing thyself is the beginning of wisdom. And that is so important. And the second thing is that the quality of our lives is a direct reflection of the quality of the relationships that we have. We need to start forging great and healthy relationship, because a lot of us we are so prone, we are so comfortable in chaos, we don't know how to live in a healthy relationship. We are so comfortable in a dysfunction that we think that is compatibility, when all along we're all sharing dysfunction. My goodness, I mean, my God, we don't have enough time, but we're gonna have to take it back to Dr. Kelli. Dr. Kelli, please. I know you have the answer. I know you do. You have all the answers. So give us the answer.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Give us the answer. What do we know?
I mean, no, I think we've all given very good answers. I think Lee's right. This is exactly what needs to happen. We need to do more of this. I'm thinking I'm going to be emailing Sivam afterwards and saying, I want to be more involved. I know I shut you guys down in the past at one time because I was getting busy, but yeah. Okay, so just to speak to some of the points, I do think it's very important for like boys and young men that we educate them about these realities, right? Educate them about the fact that boys can say no to sex too. It's okay. But I mean, even encouraging themselves not to get in these positions where, you know, young girls are now threatening boys. If you don't have sex with me, I'm going to tell everybody you're gay, or I'm going to claim you raped me or whatever, right? So we need to caution young boys, educate young boys that this is a reality, this is happening. Encourage them to get back to some biblical roots if possible, right? Maybe we wait, right? Wait to have sex, and teach them about the value of that it's not just something that, you know, I mean, kids are having sex at age 10, 11, 12, 13 now. It's crazy. Like, you know, if possible, educate them about the value in waiting and the, you know, I had a friend of mine's dad said that one of the things that he said to his son was, son, you're going to be a man anyways. You don't have to go do these things to prove that you're a man. So I love that, teaching your boys things like that. Also, if at all possible, when you get into these situations where there is a process, if it's possible, ask for gender neutral statements. For example, highlighting, like taking out the male female, right? Because if the sexes were reversed, would we still have the same outcome, right? A lot of times, you know, if you put a statement forward, for example, and everybody, you know, if it was, for example, a female putting a statement forward, everybody would come to a certain conclusion. But if it's a male state, you know, so making people make rulings on these statements, for example, without knowing the gender of the person involved could be an idea. And, you know, challenging the police or challenging the courts, you know, if this was to happen to a woman, would you still be responding the same?
Wow.
That kind of thing.
My goodness, guys, I mean, it has been such a great and much needed conversation. I wish we have more time. But what I will highly suggest that we each do is go back to our own community in our own field and take what we talk about here tonight, and let's continue, because this cannot be just a one-off. This cannot just be a one-time conversation and then we forget about it. This got to be at the forefront, because every single one of us have no man and have been in our lives. And I believe that when our men heal, when the boys heal, the men will appear. And I believe that it is in women's best interest that men are healed, that men are showing up as a leader, that men are being protected, because in protecting men, the women are being protected. They are being They're all going to force a better and healthy relationship, and the family is going to be kept together. There's a whole host of benefits of having men being able to have a voice. I can't believe that I'm saying that men don't have a voice, but apparently we're having this conversation. So there's some truth to it. There's a whole lot of truth to it. So for us to be here tonight, I really want to give you guys your kudos for being here tonight, for accepting, for responding to this call. This is a 911 call. We are first responders. That's the way that I look at us tonight. For us to show up tonight and to talk about this, and you didn't have to, right? But you did it anyway because you believe in a collective moving forward. What can we do to live this world a better place than we found it? And I can guarantee you, when we get to heaven, God is going to remember this night, and hopefully He can credit us for what we're doing tonight, because we're actually saving lives. Because keep in mind that 23 men, remember this number, 23 men are committing suicide every week, and a great portion of that has to do with losing their children, losing access to their children, or something that was done by their partner. That's 23. That's way too many, and we can't afford to do that. We need each other, and I think, again, this is not men versus men. This is, we're all in this together. So let's continue to have this great conversation, and I'm definitely going to be connecting with you guys offline to be able to continue to have this conversation and to see how we can come together as a collective to move this this needle forward. So I really do appreciate it. Again, it's been an honor and privilege for me to be the host tonight, and I will be coming back tomorrow again to host the second night. So once again, I appreciate each and every single one of you. You guys are angels. You're all just doing the work. So for me, that will be it, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Savam. Savam, over to you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone. I know some of you guys showed a lot of interest, and it's with very good honor to see a lot of interest when we send out emails, things like that. It's just 12 people almost, or even more people want to be part of it, because it's very, very crucial or very important information topic. Right now, we need to talk about that. So we need to have a discussion. We need to have more discussion on this one. There are more layers, more areas that we need to dig deeper. But anyhow, we will have another session tomorrow evening. Join us. And each one of you guys, I'm very, very thanking each one of you guys. And also the audience, whoever is joining, and then sharing your thoughts and information. And we are happy to see that you guys taking and into consideration, and also taking the message out. So thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. So see you tomorrow, though. Thank you, everyone.
Mm-hmm.